What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. I'm a certified empowerment coach, president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. And we're back with, this is not a new friend, but he's a hairier friend. He's a hairier friend. We have Alexander Williams back on the Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. And we haven't had him back for a while. He's been working on a lot of stuff. I reached out to him the other day. Well, he reached out to me, but I was thinking about, what's going on with this cat. He's just gone AWOL on us, but he's back with us. And he's going to share a little bit of background about himself, not too much because it's not the first time he's been on the conversation. So, Mr. Alexander, what's been going on?
Oh, man, a whole lot. I've been working on my first full-length novel. That's been preoccupying a majority of my time as I try to prepare for graduate school. Now a frequent collaborator on the Dr. Vibe show, so I'm always proud about that. And just, continuing the community work and academic work that I've always set out to do from college. So just continuing that path, just trying to stay humble.
Excellent. Let me ask, are you at liberty to say what the novel's about?
Yeah, so it's a Stephen King meets Beverly Cleary type of situation. So it's a piece of autobiographical fiction. I don't know if that genre exists. If it doesn't, I just created it. So it's based upon a true story, but the parts of the story that can't be verified or remembered or anything like that, I purposely put in fictional elements. And so it's a kind of a story for the reader to kind of figure out what's real and what's not, which is mirrored by the protagonist's mental state. The protagonist is a schizophrenic teenager that is just now understanding that he's schizophrenic. So it's a really multi-layered and visually appealing piece, and one of the more demanding ones that I've really worked on. So I'm excited for people to read it. I think it's going to be, really great in terms of relating to, people from different cultures, physical ailments, backgrounds. And I think it's really heartwarming too at the core of it. So I'm excited for people to be able to read it.
Excellent. Now I've heard of Stephen King, but the other writer, I don't know who that was.
Beverly Cleary. She's a children's book author. She produces all of the fun little stories that you've read, growing up. Well, when I say you, meaning 90s babies. So let me be really clear about that. I'm sorry.
No, I understand. You're saying I'm old school. That's all.
Yeah, maybe I need to say Dr. Seuss. Maybe that's more in line with your generation.
Oh, no. Relax. Dr. Seuss. Aaron Rodgers. RELAX. Now we can move forward.
Okay.
There you go. And when is the novel scheduled to be out?
I plan on releasing it winter of 2019.
Wow. You got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, no, man, trust me. It keeps me young, though, I feel like working on so much stuff, you're only as old as you feel, so if you keep on, keeping on, then good things can come of it.
Okay, but let me ask then. You're young, but this look here, the beard look ain't gonna make you look any younger. Just want to tell you.
Really? I've heard the exact opposite. I've heard that the beard actually makes me younger.
Okay. Who's telling you the opposite?
Well, see, without the beard, I look like I'm 12, and that's just not happening.
You're the person who said about the young look.
Well, yeah, but see, the young look in terms of, okay, well, you know what? I misspoke. The beard makes me look distinguished.
Oh,
and that's the look that I'm trying to go for.
Okay. The distinguished look, I'll agree with that. I can go with that. You wrote an article a while back when we haven't had a chance to chat about it until tonight.
It's true.
And just the title alone, it made me almost grow hair. Like, I'm jealous in some ways. Like, I am glad I don't got the hair. It's low maintenance. But the title itself is a little bit, okay, well, what does that mean? So we're going to chat tonight about an article that Alexander wrote back a little way back. I'm not going to say when, a little while back, called Artistic Catharsis, a look inside Black masculinity. And it seems like there's two different ideas that you're meshing together in this article. Am I correct?
Yeah, there is.
Oh, gosh, I got past the title. I'm impressed.
That's always the first. That's how you start, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you can't read the book without reading the title.
Just start. You just start. So I have a question. How did you come up with that title?
It's always really funny when I try to come up with titles, because I've always heard the general consensus is that you try to come up with it's like a movie, right? So you want to kind of get what the core movie is about in the first part, and then kind of how you're going to get there with the second part. So when I was taking a look at, the role of art and how it can be used as a catharsis, for Black men to, explore or define their masculinity, I was like, okay, well, how am I going to do that? Oh, well, if I'm doing it by myself, as an artist, if I use art as a catharsis, then that's how I'm going to provide that look inside. So once I kind of thought about it, the title the essay just kind of named itself. And when I, looked back, I was like, wow, I really couldn't have, put it in a nutshell better.
Okay, I'm going to FYI everybody on something. For some reason, Alexander's image is frozen, which is
really
interesting. Your audio is clear, but your video image is frozen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop. Oh, actually, now I lost you. Oh, now you're back. Now you're good in real time.
Oh, really?
Which is interesting. We'll continue this on. You know what? What we're going to do? Actually, we're going to pause for a few seconds, and we're going to start from the beginning.
Okay.
I think that would be the best way. So give me... Yeah, because you were frozen. It seemed that you hit a button, and then the image of you live in real time came up. So I don't know. It may have been something it must have been something on your end, or something happened and everything went good. So let's go quiet for 10 seconds and we'll do a restart.
Okay.
And I'll be able to edit it out. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. I'm a certified empowerment coach, president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. This is the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. And we have a friend coming back. There's so many new people coming on the conversation these days. The old school wants to get some room, so we're giving some room to the old school. This gentleman has been on a few times on the Dr. Vibe show. He hasn't been back for a little bit because he's been positive productive, because I can't stand the word busy. Busy is overrated. Positive productive is where it's at. That's just from my book. It's my platform, so I'm sharing it with you. We have Alexander Williams back. He has been on the conversation a few times. If you want to find out more about him, go check the Dr. Vibe Show website. We've had more than enough conversations with him. Actually, the last one he was on was with Mr. Laurent Barton, and that was magic. That was magic. They were talking about hip-hop, and certainly go check out the conversation. It was excellent. But Alexander, welcome back to the conversation. How you been?
I've been very well. Thank you for having me. I know it's been a long time, but I'm hoping to, decrease the amount of time I'm coming back on here. So looking forward to it and the epic conversation we're going to have.
Absolutely. And, it's not like you've been doing nothing since you haven't been back on. Can you give us an update on what you've been up to?
Yeah, I've been preparing for graduate school and kind of all of the requirements, demands that that brings, as well as working on my first full-length novel, Camp, which I am trying to release winter of 2019.
Give us some background about this novel.
Well, it's a cute little story. It's a kind of Stephen King meets Beverly Cleary. So it's a story about a young man going through the early stages of schizophrenia while he goes away on summer camp. And so for me, it's a really demanding piece to write because I really want to visually and sonically, engage the reader and explore different parts of, a teenage boy's psyche. He may look the same on the outside because mental illness isn't something that, is visually seen, but, so on the outside, he's going through all the same normal thing that a teenage boy does, discovering things about his masculinity, his sexuality, but then there's this whole internal component, and I think that'll really hit home for, a lot of people from different backgrounds, and at its core, it's really heartwarming, so I think a lot of people will be able to, resonate with it.
Why did you want to write this type of book, this type of genre?
Well, this genre, it's actually funny that you bring that up because I would call it autobiographical fiction. I don't know if it's been invented yet, but I'm going to go ahead and invent it if it hasn't. So it's based on a true story, but for the parts that haven't been, remembered or discussed, I kind of put fictional material in there to try to, disorient the reader and kind of make them question what's real and what's not, because that is the dynamic that the main character is going through. So it's kind of form meets content, and what really led me to write it is just to showcase a different perspective that really may not be in there for consumption. How many coming of age stories do we see of people with mental illness? And so just those types of perspectives are something that I really want people to be able to consume and see and experience how other people's lives are. So that was kind of my motivation behind it.
Have you written a novel before?
I've tried, but I've always kind of gotten in this section where I gain so much steam or momentum, and then I hit page 40 and it kind of all plops, or I get into all these really finite details and I kind of lose out on what made me start writing in the first place. Now, luckily, because I'm so personally involved with the story, that hasn't happened yet. I'm still gaining the same type of momentum, but it's still a novel, so it's still work, and with it almost gonna be 400 pages, it's a lot to digest and write. So
wow,
yeah.
Well, I'm giving this to you because I have not got to the point of writing my first book yet. A number of people have been pushing me. For some reason, it's not in my wheelhouse. I do too many epic conversations. I guess I haven't made time in the dial or to slice out a piece of pie saying, okay, this is my book writing slice of the Dr. Vibe empire. Empire? It's an empire. I believe it's an empire. Haven't slotted in yet. I use the operative word yet. You are also pursuing your education to a higher level too. You want to share about that too?
Yeah, so I am trying to pursue graduate school so that I can get in the fall of 2019 to kind of coincide with the book. I'm using it as kind of like my writing sample to try to get into graduate school. But I mean, so, a lot of that has just been trying to, reach out to old professors, just make sure that, they're aware of the work that I'm doing, reach out to new ones, kind of grow my community in the academic kind of sector. And it's been really hard. I've had to, I'm retaking the GRE, which is kind of like the SAT for graduate school. And, relearning a lot of simple things that I had forgotten, mainly math. So that's also humbling, because it's, always got to make sure that you stay committed and, you keep trying to get better a little bit every day. So, all of this, kind of coinciding with each other is a lot to deal with, but, I find that I do better with chaos, organized chaos, but, chaos nonetheless.
What is more challenging for you right now? Getting ready for the educational pursuit or doing the educational pursuit or writing this novel, and why?
I have to probably say the novel writing, because the educational pursuit has certain things that can kind of work for a multiple set of years. So, for instance, my GRE scores are good for 5 years. So if I do well this time, I don't have to take it again for 5 years. I can work on the other parts of my application. But the novel is a novel. It has certain critical, demands and creative demands, and then there's the whole business side of it. It's how to market it, how to make sure that people are able to access it through different mediums. I'm planning to also do an audiobook version, which,
Whoa.
I think will be really interesting and cool. So, I think the novel's a lot more demanding.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're speaking. You're going to be successful in both pursuits.
That's the plan. I mean,
Well,
just
it
gotta.
better be the plan. It better be. It better be the plan. Tonight we're going to have a epic conversation on an article that Alexander wrote a little while back, but we haven't had the opportunity for him to, as one of my regular contributors says, opine about it. So he's
Ooh.
going. He's yes, that's Dr. Lawrence Rashid, who's a regular on Do You Know What Time It Is, who's actually doing work at the University of Oregon now. So
Go Ducks.
there you go. He's a Nike guy. I shouldn't say that. He'll probably say, you crazy? But that's another conversation altogether. The name of the article is Artistic Catharsis, a look inside Black masculinity. And I find it fascinating just from the title.
Hmm.
You are merging two different subject topics into one. How did that come about?
Well, for me, they're very much related. And a big part of that is because I use art as catharsis, and for some of that is to explore and kind of, find out why I tend to exhibit the masculine traits that I do. And so when I was coming up with the title, I always have been taught that it's kind of like a movie. You want to tell them what the movie is about with the first part, and then, tell them how you're going to get there with the second part. So when I really sat down to, write the essay and, the title, it's kind of just, when I thought about it, it named itself. And so that's how I came up with Artistic Catharsis, that looks inside Black masculinity.
Interesting. Right from the beginning, or a few lines in, you ask a question here. I mean, we need to explore it a little bit more. Um, I'm quoting here from your article: as both a performer of the arts and a black man, my question is this. If one of the most hardened and idolized figures in recent history, and he's referring to Tupac Shakur,
Hmm.
can openly express his passion for the arts, particularly ballet and theater, then why are these pursuits still looked down upon in black communities?
Yeah, so, what really goes with that question is I'm anticipating a certain level of pushback, right? There's people are saying, oh, well, I have friends that are rap, or I have friends that, are artists or painters, or I have friends that, are in musical theater. And, it's kind of like the same thing when, we say of, all right, well, not all white people do this, but we use white people in terms of, particularly pointing out that specific sector of people that do that, right? So that's where the question kind of lies in, because as much as, there are people that, openly support and, encourage and strive for, their peers and for themselves to engage in the arts, there's also the flip side of that. There's also people, black men that are growing up that receive derision for, pursuing these types of activities that, certain black communities like to deem are feminine or aren't fit for, the black masculine image, And what it really kind of boils down to is, why does that behavior exist? And that's kind of the question that I try to look at inside this article.
Interesting. And it's does the word stereotypes come up in any of this in this article? Like, it may not be directly, but indirectly, because you make it seem that black men who are in pursuits that are not considered black are stereotyped, and a lot of times it's his masculinity is questioned.
Well, yeah, I mean, stereotypes, they are problematic for a variety of reasons. And one of the biggest reasons is that they don't allow flexibility. They don't allow a certain amount of, comprehensive definition when it comes to labeling someone as a stereotype. When you label a black man as, let's say, the stereotype of a thug, you cut out everything else that he can be. And we all know that, as people, we're not all just one thing. You can't just put somebody in a box and say you are that and only that, because of the complexity that humanity is. I mean, we all know that, so many people exist in dualities of things, and so many people can, be really nice on one day and bad on the other. I mean, you can have a really good relationship with somebody, and another person has a really terrible relationship with that person. I mean, there's a lot of, multifaceted things when it comes to people. And so to really nail somebody down as a stereotype and to deny them the opportunity to say how they're not that stereotype is damaging, because that affects public perception and how people, interact with that perception.
You bring up in your article the whole area of many black men regarded as, quote, thugs, unquote. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had that experience personally?
Yes, and then I've also had kind of the flip side of it,
yes,
where
I was going to get to that.
Where I'm not seen as black enough to get that stereotype. So, and that's what I'm saying, that like there's, so much more to, black men, specifically in regards to this article than just that type of hardened thug stereotype, because it's also not allowing someone to show you how they got to be this, where you are trying to label them as a stereotype. I mean, no one starts out as the hardened thug. There has to be a journey, in order for that type of archetype to even exist. So, in my experience, being labeled as a thug is just, a lot of the times just been, tied to me being black. And then that, and that is hugely racist and problematic in of itself. And so it's kind of, this, and that's what I love about, this essay, is that I really am able to examine, all right, what is the public perception and interaction with the hardened thug stereotype, and how does that relate to black masculinity?
It's interesting in the article too, and I appreciate you being transparent, how some of this, I guess at actually another level, your masculinity has actually been questioned at times from your father, by brothers, by uncles and cousins. What sort of pushback were you getting from them, and how did you handle it? And how do you handle it today if it still exists?
Yeah, well, I mean, growing up, I didn't handle it well, and that's because, with all the thing that, faces me particularly, and, you asked me how that, handles with Alexander Williams. I'm going to tell you, being mixed race, being black is a much different experience than it is for, probably a black person that's not mixed race. So for me, there's a lot of, conflict and emotional turmoil that came with, the racism of, my experience with certain groups of people. And, for me, it was really hard because I'm a very emotional person. I don't have a lot of guile when it comes to, displaying how something is affecting me. When I'm emotional, you can really see it in my face, and you can see it in my body, mannerisms. Now, I've tried to learn how to calm that down and how to, develop some guile on that, but it's a work in progress. So for me, when, I received this type of, racism as a black person, whether that's, someone, denying my blackness, or saying that, I'm not black enough, or, something like that. And, these are harmful incidents. I'm a big crier, sometimes. Mm-hmm. So, for me, I'd always get told to like man up, like stop being a pussy, like don't cry, like that's, and for me, crying was just a helpful way for me to, display these emotions that I was feeling, but, to my peers and to, my father and everyone else, that was, not fitting their box or their definition of masculinity that I needed to be showing as a black man. And that's, the type of problematic, kind of idea that I tackle in the essay.
I want to see if these are correlated or they're separate subjects.
Hmm.
You talk about the racism that you have deal with. Is it a different as does is it relate to your masculinity? Does it have an effect on your masculinity?
Well, yeah, I mean, it can. I mean, it can intersect when they compare the stereotype to you, or when the racism is tied to a certain perception that they have of black people, and so for here, I use the thug stereotype. I mean, in reality, the characteristics of a thug are just born from like racist perceptions of black men that are all a result of black men being marginalized throughout United States history and pigeonholed into being certain archetypes based upon how white supremacy and white people view them. So when it comes to how all of these intersect, let's just say based upon the title, we're able to see how we become the humans that we are through art. Art teaches us how we view our humanity and how it's demonstrated within our society, within our culture. And so once you become an artist, and through art you put yourself in a little piece of everything that you do. I mean, whenever Pablo Picasso painted, there's a little piece of him within art. Sometimes that's intentional, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's just our subconscious being projected into the art. And so when you're able to go through that type of process, sometimes you can get really critical. You can start to see, all right, well, hey, I see that these series of choices or these series of events that happened to this character made them become this type of person. What does that say about my own journey, and how did I get to where I am now from where I was? And that's the type of thing that isn't really being considered when people are using racism as a way to get to your masculine image.
As you go on through this journey, how are you handling it now compared to the past?
Well, so like I said in the past, I didn't have the type of emotional outlets that I have now and the type of support systems that I have now. So, I would lash out in self-destructive behaviors, whether that's just, not making the best type of decisions that I should have, or, trying to escape my problems, or, trying to deflect them, or, engage in certain type of behaviors that I knew to be destructive, but, at a certain point I needed to, confront these emotions in the way that I had the tools then to deal with. Now it's a lot different, in terms of how I interact with these types of emotions, is because now I have a better set of tools, in terms of emotional clarity, capacity in order to deal with them. So now I don't, react in the same way I did before. Like, let's say if, someone calls me the N-word, for instance, when I was a teenager or a young boy, I just immediately thought like violence was the way to answer that question, because I didn't have anything else. That was just the only tool in my toolbox. If I only have a hammer, then I'm only going to use the hammer. But now I got a screwdriver, I got a wrench, I got a needle nose pliers. So there's different things that I can utilize, so that so I don't have to display that I'm the same type of person, or that I'm going to allow these things to affect me the same way that they did. And when you allow people to mold and shape you into the perception that they have of you, then it only then they use that as confirmation. It's like, well, look, I knew he was a thug. Look at him. All he does is beat people up when he gets sad, or something like that. And so for me now, it's just being a better person in that regard, in terms of like taking some type of accountability, but also just realizing the patterns for what they are and trying to educate people about it.
Okay. Why did you use Tupac Shakur as a reference point for this article?
Because he was a really good example of that duality that I referenced earlier, in terms of certain people or politicians even just, recognizing him. Oh, he's the gangster rapper that, shot up, blah, blah, blah. He was involved in all this violence. He's not the good role model we want our kids following. But, failing to account that, he is this complete individual of, this person that took ballet when they went to an art school, and came up with this type of thug persona as a way to be critical of all the history and all of the social legacies that came up to this point. If you and at a certain point it's just ignorance, because if you watch a lot of the interviews that Tupac Shakur does, if you read his poetry, not his, if you don't listen to his rap, it's different. Rap and poetry, even though they're obviously so interconnected and dependent on one another, can be different spheres. So if you read his poetry, if you read his essays, the more critical parts of who he is as an artist, you can see that there's so much more to his work that people either don't want to accept, can't accept. They don't have, I guess, they haven't done their homework, in order to actually back up what they're saying. And so, I would be very curious to see, what people's reactions are when they hear that, Tupac Shakur did ballet and he loved, to do dance and musical theater. Like, if you bring that up to your friends, and their automatic reaction is like, oh man, he did that, like, for real, then boom, like, what does that say? Like, that reaction is exactly what I'm trying to get at with this essay.
In dealing with these dualities, what hurts you more, getting it from the non-white, the non-black community, or the black community?
I think it's always got to be the black community, right? You expect that people that you feel a certain kinship with, or that you feel that you're a part of the community, I feel like always hurts to be othered by them more so than the people you feel like will other you kind of outright. It's kind of like there's a saying that the hardest stab in the back is from the person that gives it to you right beside you, rather than the person that does it up front. I totally butchered that, but I hope you know what I mean. But yeah, because it's, you want to think and you want to believe that because these people have undergone similar experiences to you, that when given the power, when given the moment to show that they are different, that they'll take it. And when they don't, then that just kind of further complicates, how you feel you are a part of that community, or, it questions that kinship that you feel that you might have with them.
Nice. Then what do you feel in 2018, why are black men still experiencing this duality from the black community? Why are some black men experiencing this duality? Because we should know better.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. And that's what I'm saying. It kind of, I think, speaks more to the, the flaws that we have as humans. What's the biggest, I think, kind of across the board problem with humanity is that we get to see all these patterns and all these choices that people have made for centuries, and across cultures, across languages, and we're still doing the same thing, right? Like, you would think that the mistakes that, your great-grandfather made and your grandfather made and your father made, that you will learn from. But what is it just like, right? They say that violence is a cycle. And so you would think that, because of all the information that we have available to us and the fact that, we live these things ourselves, that we would learn from it. But, it's just kind of like, it's like the same thing with, the violence being a cycle. It's sometimes, people feel based upon their situation or what happens that they are, they have to perpetuate, the situation that they're in. And so, at a certain point, it just comes to self-awareness, being able to look yourself in the mirror and say, who am I really? And does finding out who I am scare me? Does, really looking at myself honestly and objectively, is that something that I'm not able to do? Because I found in my life that the more troubling times, or the more times that I am not right within, or the harder times that I have, with myself, because for me, there exists this type of dual consciousness where, I am me and I can perceive things that are around me, but I'm also critical of myself in that moment. And so sometimes, it comes to us as black men when it comes to these types of emotions, where your friend can come up to you and say, oh, dude, like I just got in the ballet play, like I'm so excited, in that moment, where you have all this, presented to you, what choice are you going to make? And that's the, biggest question that, we're all trying to get at, I feel like, in terms of articles like these. Is like, when given the choice, or, the situation, what is the choice that we're going to make?
Powerful. Powerful. You write in this piece some opportunities that black men can work on in regards to this. What are some opportunities you feel not only black, actually, let me park on that. I want to come that down the road. I'm going to bring up something else up. How much of an effect has hip hop had on this dualness?
Well, see, hip hop it's so interesting, right? Because it is both a result of these types of experiences and a tool to not only explore these instances but also educate, right? So when it comes to hip hop, I mean, just like any tool, there's good and there's bad to it based upon how a person chooses to use it. So, with Tupac Sukur, with Nas, with, certain rappers like, Jizza, we're able to see the type of critical element that rap needs in order to be successful for the purpose that, its artist is intending. But then, there's other people that use it. Maybe they just want to commercialize it, so they just want to make radio hits and make money off of it and live a certain lifestyle. And now, while that's their, right as, a free American to do that, that's when you get into the point of, these Fox News networks of like, oh, well, look at these rappers, they're trying to poison the minds of our youth, and they are thugs, and they do this. And so, it really comes to, what is the artist's intent? What are they trying to do? Who are they trying to project? Because so much of hip hop involves a persona that you create as a rapper. Childish Gambino is a really, really great example of this, and he deliberately points this out in a couple of interviews that Childish Gambino, it's not Donald Glover. Donald Glover can't be Childish Gambino because Childish Gambino is something that Donald Glover can't be. Donald Glover created Childish Gambino, and the persona of the rapper is something to be explored and interact with in a public arena, because then that's how you get to see how someone would treat that person in real life. Like, so say for instance that someone that, hears a rapper's name, for instance, and they just, have heard certain things about them, they've never listened to their music, they don't know who they are, they don't know what their experiences is, but, if their automatic tendency is to go, a angle of prejudice, of, judgment, of racism, then you can see how they would treat a normal, how they treat a person that actually, embodied these types of characteristics in real life. And so then you get to see how, all of this is related in terms of social relationships. So there's, a huge part of how hip hop can be, tied to all of this, because it's such an inherently black thing.
I had to get the hip hop in there because I know you're a hip hop head, so I had to slide it in there somehow.
Appreciate that.
How much impact do black women have on this duality?
Well, see, and that is really interesting part of all of this, right? Because a lot of, well, I want to say some of the times that the lack of a maternal figure can be problematic in this. So to clarify, the character Bishop, Tupac's character in Juice, there is no mother role there. So it's just Tupac's character and his emotionally estranged and distant father. There's no kind of bridge to connect them. And a lot of times, black women in family relationships often serve as that bridge between a distant parent and son or daughter, because of the emotional responsibility that's placed upon them. And so a lot of and I know in my own life, a lot of the emotional clarity and intelligence that I gained was garnered through my relationships and my discussions with Black women, because they gave me the woman's perspective that I needed, to kind of see and, view in a perspective that's not my own, but then it's also a Black perspective. So I know, kind of where it's coming from in its origins and, how it relates to me and, my own race. And so, young Black women are just as important in this process as Black men are, because they have responsibility, or they have a certain kind of effect that leads to these type of behaviors.
Excellent. Oh, excellent. Just thinking, because there's so many different nuances in this article. And when I went over, I go, we could be on for 3 hours just pulling this apart. Do you have conversations with other men about this type of subject, or did they ever share it with you about the duality?
Yeah. So my younger brother, I have conversations with him about these types of things all the time, because I provide for him a certain type of mentorship, and for him, he uses me as a sounding board of like, hey, is this acceptable? Is this an okay type of behavior? Or he'll ask me, hey, like, why do I do these certain types of things? And I'll be able to point out to him, oh, hey, it's because of this type of pattern. This has hurt you, and so you've manifested that hurt as something else, and that's how that leads to this. And so,
let me just interrupt. How has his experiences at his age differ any than the experiences you had at his age in regards to this duality?
Well, it's not mostly the age that has been the difference. It's mostly the company that we've kept.
Okay.
So for me, I've always been drawn to the quote-unquote weirdos of the world. Like, I have very eccentric friends, and friends that I tend to gravitate towards people that are like me, in terms of people that don't like to be defined by a box, or they like to they're larger than life, or they have a multitude of interests, and because of those interests, they are drawn to certain types of communities that are catered to those interests. And for him, he would have friends that, again, the Fox News pundit would label as the thug stereotype, or kids that don't have any direction, and that whole type of negative stereotype. But the reason why he keeps these types of friends are because these are friends that he believes have gone through similar things, and that he can gain a sense of community by fostering a certain level of brotherhood with them. And so when I see the types of relationships that he has with men like that, they're not like, mainly probably just because my young brother's a good judge of character, but they're not these hardened criminals that people stereotype Black men to be. These are men that have thoughts and experiences that can relate to people of all races and colors. They have the same questions about finding out who they are, just like we all do. They all have the same thoughts about wondering, am I good enough? And these types of universal ideas that people just can often think only exist with them, but not with everyone else. And so when it comes to these friends of my brother, it's really interesting, because I'm able to see kind of the flip side of that too. I'm also see how they try to placate each other into these negative stigmatizations. And so it's kind of just like watching certain parts of the essay play out in real life, but then also, like you said, the duality of it. So it's really interesting because it ties to the social aspect of it.
Excellent. I would love to have you and your brother on. I think that would be a very interesting conversation, getting different perspectives on some of these important conversation topics we have. If blacks who are facing this, black males who are facing this, are getting it, especially from the Black community, or I like to say Black environment, what words would you give, or what actions do you suggest them to take to push back on these sort of duality accusations?
Well, I mean, I think for me, and I'm going to answer that question kind of through my journey of how I've kind of navigated that, is one, really be proud of who you are and gain the confidence to always be who you are. And, for that type of process, it's not easy, and that was kind of the problem for me growing up, is I was always just told, when I needed to, who am I, or how do I do this, or how do I do that, people just say, well, it's just about confidence. And no one ever actually tells you what that confidence is like, or what it's supposed to look like, or how it's supposed to feel, or, how you're supposed to, or how you know when you're using it. So for me, I'm a super big nerd, and that's just like always how it's going to happen. And so that's displayed in kind of everything that I am. So, I have quote unquote like nerdy thing. I have, Pokemon backpack. I have, superhero folders and things like that. And at a certain point when, when it wasn't cool being a nerd and, you got crap for it, it took me to say, you know what, like, I'm going to withstand all that crap because my relationship and, demonstrating who I am means more to me than the flack that I will receive for it. So that's kind of what, I would say in terms of gaining the confidence to be who you are, because, when you're able to get that and, really foster that within yourself, you start to gain a certain level of strength, and that strength can carry you further than you know. And the second part of that is use that art. For me, when, I was going through a lot of dark times in my life, my art was sometimes all that I had, so I would just create and create and create. And being able to create is such a beautiful process, when you get to see something from start to finish, and not only just, seeing a completion of it, but when you're in the throes of it, and you get to tap into that type of energy that's outside of yourself, that exists all around you, but it's not something that you can really physically touch or something. It's just something that you feel a part of. It's a really healing and necessary type of feeling in order to combat all of the negative emotions that are placed upon you. When you're stereotyped and othered and put in this out group. So being able to tap into those positive energies and being able to just produce is just something for me. It's very, it's a great piece of catharsis, pun intended. So, I would say, those are the two main, types of advice, because, once you, really gain the confidence to be who you are and you keep creating, everything else is going to kind of fall into place.
Okay, I have a very interesting comment here from someone. It's Black Tulsa Build Monger. They're saying, and I don't know, it may be, we'll see where it goes. They're saying that's not nerdish, that's childish. How is it that black men refuse to grow up and face reality of existing within an anti-black enrichment social system? Okay, that's pretty. I think we want some clarification. I think what this person's trying to say is, what is hindering black men to be their full self, to live their truth? I guess I'm paraphrasing. It's a little bit interesting the way the question is put, but you've used your own personal experience there. What if during your journey, what if some of the things that have prevented you to push back on the duality? You're obviously better off now than you were, but when you were starting off in your journey, what were some of the things that were preventing you to push back against the duality?
Well, like I said, sometimes it was the lack of confidence. Sometimes it was also just trying to see what the consequences were. If you push back on someone in a certain type of way, will someone just, label you as, aggressive? And it's like, oh, well, this person just lashes out when, I just ask an honest question of them. Oftentimes it can be the very, systematic things that I talk about in the, in the article when it comes down to, economic inequality, white supremacy, certain, your situation in terms of, you know, your stage in your life? Are you someone that's transitioning from high school to college? Or are you transitioning from college to, you know, a career? You know, usually when someone is in that type of transition, you know, they can be a little more susceptible to the things that are plaguing them. So it's kind of like understanding where your mindset is at and what tools do you have available to you, you know, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, to, you know, get you to regroup when, you know, you're going through these things.
Are you getting a feel that black men are more willing to talk about the dualities now than in the past?
Uh, yeah, you know, I would say that the general trend would be yes, and I can't tell you what, you know, what caused that, or, you know, if that's just anecdotal. But I mean, in my experience, you know, the types of conversations about, you know, masculinity and, you know, and how, you know, emotional clarity and intelligence can help us, and, you know, and how, you know, black men need to be support systems for each other. Those are easier conversations to have now, you know, than it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. You know, I don't know if that's just because I've grown in that, you know, since that time, and, you know, I've undergone, you know, self-development, but I would have to say that, you know, there's also things that happen with people, you know, in their own lives. You know, sometimes it takes longer for people to learn certain things. Sometimes, you know, they have to, you know, go through a certain amount of experience in order to, you know, get it. But, like, I can just, you know, an example, it's much easier to have conversations, you know, with my father about, you know, why he acted the way he did growing up, you know, saying that, you know, I was too sensitive, that I need to man up. Those are conversations were much, you know, that are much easier now because we've accepted a certain amount of responsibility in, you know, in our actions, and we can see, you know, how we're different today than we were then, you know. So I mean, I think maybe some of that is attributed to individual growth, you know, and how that can kind of manifest in the talks that we have with each other. But I do say that you know, in my experience, it's easier.
If it's become easier,
Hmm.
would you consider yourself an agent of change?
Well, I would like to say that I'm an agent, you know, proponent for change, or, but I mean, I think the more accurate description would be saying that I'm an agent as a result of this change. You
Okay.
know, that I had to kind of undergo this process in order to be able to identify it,
Yep.
and then, you know, point it out as it's happening. You know, sometimes when you're going through something, you don't really know what it is that you're going through until you've already passed it. You know, it's like the analogy, you know, you're too close to the elephant. You can't see the entire elephant if all of you see is, you know, the gray, blurry type of skin. You know, you have to back up in order to actually, you know, understand what you're dealing with. Um, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to see if you can answer this conversation piece. So it's a two-parter.
Okay.
Would you acknowledge there's a difference between white masculinity and black masculinity?
In my experience as a mixed race person, I would say yeah. I would have to say that the type of masculinity that I, you know, display is different based upon, the, I guess, the African part of me and the European. And part of that, and kind of why I know I'm tapping into different energies, is let's, use hip hop. When I know I'm engaged in that type of behavior, because of, my ancestry and, the type of community of hip hop that, I'm trying to reach, I know that I'm, reaching into that black masculine side of me, based upon, like I said, like my intent with hip hop and, the kind of, legacy and canon that I'm trying to, participate with there. And how that is displayed and accepted by the people around me. Sometimes you're able to see how you are being as people are defining it around you.
Okay. All right. It, I think it's just very interesting how you are able to draw from different energies. It's very, very interesting being of mixed heritage, or they say biracial. I don't know what the proper term is. So, whatever it is, please educate Dr. Vibe on what the correct terminology is. Just drawing from the different energies is quite interesting. Is is that an asset? Is it a challenge? What is it?
Well, so I mean, so it's just based upon the person's makeup, right? I mean, if the person is just, let's say, Pakistani and European, then they'd be, okay, let's specifically say English, Pakistani English, then, they'd be biracial. Someone is, multiracial is, when they have, a great amount of different, races and cultures mixed into them. For me, that used to, I allowed it when I was younger to be a source of conflict, because I was navigating all these, these journeys of personal identity when it came to, understanding who I was as a Native American man, as a European man, as as a black man. But now, having the, truth in myself to, be comfortable with, all my ancestry, and being able to participate more in my culture, understanding where my ancestors come from, how I am all of these things, and how they culminate into me, and how I'm a living part of these types of legacies, became a source of strength. So now I'm able to really draw upon those types of energies, because I know who I am, and I know that who I am is a part of what made me me.
Excellent. Well, I think we will end off our epic conversation. I'm actually going to read the last few lines of this great article, and I will start with what makes Tupac Shakur's love for ballet theater and, quote, feminine, unquote, pursuits impactful is its ability to redefine masculinity within the black community and break the rigid gender roles black men are often placed into. If a transformative figure like Tupac Shakur can embody these activities, then perhaps public celebration of this embodiment can lead to more acceptance of black men pursuing their true passion within the performing arts and music. With proper education about the flexibility of masculinity and the importance of emotional support systems, black men can be empowered to take the active community roles and undo the damage of their predecessors. The precedent already established by such artists such as Tupac Shakur, Prince, and Frank Ocean to dismantle the cultural and society expectations of black men should serve as role models for other black men to follow. It is up to us as a community to empower and support each other as colleagues, friends, brothers. The next time a black man approaches you with news about his ballet recital, orchestra audition, or anything else in the arts, support him. Be there to lift him up when racism, economic equality, and white supremacy strives to bring him down. Strive to think outside of the box instead of limiting your life and masculinity within it. Well said. The only thing I would add on to this is don't even think about a box.
Well, I had to, bring it around, make it come full circle with the box.
I don't even think about boxes, because I take the philosophy: life is large, fill it up.
Mm.
Any final words you'd like to share with our audience, and also your contact information, sir?
Well, I mean, right there, the last part of it is just, really, break open the box. Don't try to, limit yourself within it. Don't allow other people to limit who you are.
Yes.
Be, proud and strong in who you are. Celebrate other people for, participating in that same journey, and just, try to, make more positive in the world than negative, and really understand the type of battles that, we as people, we as black people, we as, people in general are going through. You can follow me on Twitter at Dan the Malformed. Don't post often, but everything that I do post is pretty important.
There you go.
So,
nice comeback. Well done. The only thing I would actually add to what Alexander has said is that everyone is whole. You're not part of. You're a whole person. When you start thinking that you're not whole, that's when challenges and the noise will come in. Noise has a better opportunity of coming in when you don't think yourself as whole. Just because you're into the arts, well, I think Black history is full of arts. Hello? So that's part of our foundation. That's part of our heritage. And because especially Black men are going to areas that we haven't been in traditionally, that's a good thing. Because a number of people think we can't do that. So keep the pursuing, keep up the excellence, and keep thinking you're whole. And proving to yourself that you're whole. Because at the end of the day, the only battle you really have is with yourself, not with anybody else. It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. If you'd like to watch epic conversations like this, you're at the place, YouTube. Go into YouTube search engine and just put in the space, DR period space, VIB space, SHOW. If you want to listen to replays of my epic conversations, go to the website, the drvibeshow.com, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Tuned In Radio, Google Play Music Store, iHeartRadio. Selected audio replays are available at thegoodmenproject.com and WJMS Radio in New York City and Amazon Alexa. Certified Empowerment Coach, President and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. If you'd like a complimentary session, please reach out to me. Email is dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Twitter is at drvibeshow, or you can go to my website, go to the top, click on Contact the Dr. Vibe Show. You can email me from there. You can send me a video message. You can send me an audio message. I'm a brand ambassador for the only online magazine dedicated to African Americans in food, wine, and travel. The name of the magazine is Cuisine Noir Magazine. Website address is cuisinenoirmag.com. If you're a business or entrepreneur and if you'd like to get media promotion, I run a service called Getting Media Coverage, where I help businesses and entrepreneurs get media promotion so they can elevate their business, product, or service. I will be I live in Toronto, but I'm going to be emceeing an event in Toronto on November 17th and 18th called the Men and Women's Summit on Masculinity. Ironically, we talked about that tonight, so I'll be emceeing that event.
What are the odds?
There you go. And if you want some more information, I'd go to my website, click on the image, and you'll get to the website with the information on it, including tickets. There's 7 outstanding speakers. The keynote speaker is a gentleman named Warren Farrell, who's going to be talking about the boy crisis. Finally, last few things I say signing off. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Next up, sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions. And now I also say aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. I'd like to thank Alexander for taking time out of his positive dual life of education and novel writer. I had to circle that back, the dual life. I
see what you did there.
There you go. And I'd like to say thanks very much for everyone who watched live on the replay. Keep up with everything that's going on with Dr. Vibe. If you have any conversation, topic suggestions, please reach out to me. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and from my heritage, we like to say walk good. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.